The small airport hangar outside Phoenix was sweltering under the Arizona sun, but inside, the temperature was bearable thanks to industrial fans. In the center of the space sat a partially restored P-51 Mustang, the legendary World War II fighter that had helped win the war in Europe. The aircraft was in pieces, its aluminum skin reflecting the overhead lights, its Rolls-Royce Merlin engine suspended on a stand nearby. Working on the landing gear assembly was an old man, maybe 90 years old, his hands spotted with age, but moving with surprising precision as he cleaned and restored each component. 3 young Air Force officers walked into the hangar, their flight suits marking them as active duty pilots from nearby Luke Air Force Base. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, Captain Sarah Chun, and Lieutenant Marcus Webb were 35 pilots on their day off, exploring local aviation museums and restoration projects. They'd heard about the P-51 restoration and wanted to see a piece of history. If you're curious where this story leads, hit that like button and comment if you think some aircraft deserve more respect than others. Check it out, Morrison said, approaching the aircraft with the casual confidence of someone who flew the most advanced fighters in the world. A P-51. My great-grandfather might have seen these in the war. Chim nodded, walking around the fuselage. Beautiful aircraft for its time. But honestly, it's basically a lawnmower engine with wings compared to what we fly. Hard to believe these things actually saw combat. The old man looked up from his work, his weathered face showing no reaction to their comments. He simply nodded politely and returned his attention to the landing gear assembly. Webb noticed him and called out, "Hey, Pops, you the mechanic here? This your restoration project?" The old man straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "Something like that. Been working on her for about 3 years now. Almost flight ready." Morrison walked closer, examining the cockpit. "Must be a labor of love. These old birds are museum pieces now, relics from a different era of warfare. Still, pretty cool to see one being brought back to life. You a warbird enthusiast?" The old man smiled slightly. "You could say that. I've always had an affection for the P-51. Reliable aircraft. Saved my life more times than I can count." The 3 pilots exchanged glances, assuming the old man meant he'd flown in one as a passenger, or perhaps during peacetime service. Chun, trying to be friendly, asked, "Did you serve? Maybe got a ride in one at an air show?" The old man's smile widened just a fraction. "One got a few rides, yes. About 273 combat missions, to be exact. Fighter escort over Germany, ground attack in France, bomber protection runs all the way to Berlin and back. Now, before we continue, if this story has you captivated, please subscribe and turn on notifications. What happens next will leave you speechless." The hangar went quiet. Morrison's casual expression faltered. "Wait, you flew combat missions in World War II? In this type of aircraft?" The old man nodded. "This exact type, yes. Belonged to the 352nd Fighter Group, the blue-nosed bastards of Bodney. We flew out of England, escorting B-17s and B-24s deep into Germany. This particular aircraft isn't the one I flew, but she's the same model, same configuration. Bringing her back to life feels like honoring old friends." Webb pulled out his phone, suddenly very interested. "Sir, what's your name?" The old man hesitated, then replied, "Colonel James Harrington, retired. Though I was just a lieutenant, and then captain when I flew combat. Made colonel later, mostly behind a desk." Webb was typing frantically, and his face went pale as search results appeared. "Captain, Lieutenant, you need to see this. This is Colonel James Ace Harrington. 11 confirmed kills. Distinguished Flying Cross with 3 oak leaf clusters. Silver Star, Purple Heart. He's one of the top American aces from World War II." Chien's skepticism vanished instantly, replaced by shock and respect. Morrison approached the old man more carefully now, noticing details he'd missed before. On the workbench nearby sat a worn leather flight jacket, and pinned to it were original World War II combat wings, the sterling silver aviator badge that could only be earned through service. Next to the wings was a small collection of medals in a shadow box, their ribbons faded but unmistakable. "Sir," Morrison said, his voice completely different now, "I apologize. I had no idea. The way I talked about this aircraft, calling it a lawn mower, that was incredibly disrespectful." Colonel Harrington waved his hand dismissively. "You weren't wrong, Lieutenant. Compared to your F-35, this is a simple machine. Single-piston engine, mechanical controls, no computers, no advanced avionics. But what she lacks in technology, she makes up for in reliability and the skill required to fly her effectively." He walked to the suspended engine, running his hand along the Merlin's cooling fins with obvious affection. This engine, when it ran right, produced about 1,500 horsepower. Your F-35's engine produces over 40,000 pounds of thrust. There's no comparison in raw power. But let me tell you what flying this bird was like. No radar, no missiles, no computers calculating intercepts. Just your eyes, your instincts, your situational awareness, and 650 caliber machine guns. Every dogfight was close range, personal, your skill against theirs. Webb asked quietly, "Sir, you said 11 confirmed kills. What was that like? Actual air-to-air combat?" Colonel Harrington's expression grew distant, remembering. "Terrifying. Exhausting. Every mission, you knew friends might not come back. Every dogfight was life or death decided in seconds. You'd see a Messerschmitt or Focke-Wulf in your sights, and you'd have to lead the target, compensate for speed and altitude, fire in bursts because ammunition was limited. Then you'd watch that aircraft go down, and you'd feel relief that it wasn't you, but also the weight of knowing someone's son, someone's father just died." Chun asked, "How did pilots handle that psychologically, sir?" "No counseling, no mental health support back then." The colonel nodded. "We handled it by not talking about it, by drinking too much, by focusing on the mission. Some guys broke. We called it flag happy or combat fatigue. Many of us carried it for decades afterward, what you now call PTSD. But we didn't have a name for it then, just nightmares and survivor's guilt." Morrison looked at the P-51 with new eyes. "Sir, may I ask why you're restoring this aircraft? Why go through 3 years of work at your age?" Colonel Harrington's voice grew soft. "Because in 1944, my wingman, Lieutenant Robert Chun, saved my life over Schweinfurt. Messerschmitt on my tail, I was dead to rights, and Bobby pulled a maneuver that got the German off me. 2 weeks later, Bobby's engine failed over France. You didn't make it home. You was 22 years old." He paused, emotion evident in his voice. "This restoration is for Bobby and all the others who didn't come back. Every boat I tighten, every Part 1 restore, it's my way of keeping their memory alive. When this bird flies again, it'll carry their names on the fuselage. They gave everything so we could have a future. The least I can do is make sure they're not forgotten." The 3 young pilots stood in respectful silence, the magnitude of what they were witnessing finally hitting them. Morrison spoke first. "Sir, is there anything we can do to help? We're pilots, not mechanics, but we could learn." "It would be an honor to contribute to this project." The colonel smiled warmly. "I'd appreciate that, Lieutenant. And maybe you could teach an old pilot about modern fighters." Fair exchange of knowledge across generations. Over the following months, the 3 F-35 pilots became regular visitors to the hangar, spending their free time learning restoration, hearing stories, and sharing their own experiences with modern combat aviation. Colonel Harrington taught them about the fundamentals of flying, about reading an aircraft through stick feedback and engine sound, skills that transcended technology. In return, they showed him videos of F-35 capabilities, and he marveled at how far aviation had come while reminding them that the basics, situational awareness, discipline, courage, remained unchanged. When the P-51 finally flew again, Colonel Harrington was in the cockpit despite his age, his hands steady on the controls he'd last held 75 years earlier. The 3 young pilots watched from the ground as the Merlin engine roared to life, as the restored fighter lifted off and climbed into the Arizona sky. On the fuselage, painted in elegant script, were the names of 11 pilots who never made it home, Bobby Chin's name at the top of the list. This story reminds us that the aircraft we see as relics were once cutting-edge technology flown by warriors who risked everything, that every generation's tools seemed primitive to the next but required extraordinary skill to master, and that behind every restored warbird is a story of sacrifice and brotherhood. If this touched your heart, please share it with someone who loves aviation history. Drop a comment about a veteran or piece of history that inspired you. Let's honor those who flew before GPS, before computers, before safety nets, when courage and skill were all that kept you alive. Thank you for watching, and remember, every old aircraft carries stories worth hearing.